Okay, so we've got all of these cannabinoids in the plant. They're in different levels and different plants that you have in here or in the other rooms, or the other producers are producing different levels. And there's something called the entourage effect that we talk about with patients all the time. And I describe it as, the effect of the entire plant on the entire body and getting that whole effect. Whereas THC might do some things, CBD does other things. Talk about the entourage effect from a science perspective.
I think the entourage effect is the hardest thing for doctors specifically to kind of buy into. Yeah. And the reason why is because you're used to dose reactions.
Yeah, a very allopathic method.
Right.
We have one compound, we give it for one condition. And that's how we were taught. And it makes a lot of sense in Western medicine. So are you saying that the entourage effect is plant-based medicine speak?
So far. But we do know some things about it. And we know this through experimentation. So we know that CBG helps with inflammation, but we find CBG is more effective with a little bit of CBD with it. You get an enhanced effect of CBG in the presence of CBD. That, for me as a chemist, is an entourage effect.
I see.
So, if somebody says, well, we can't prove this and can't prove this, yeah, so far that's correct. But let me put it this way. When somebody takes a plant, and let's say they're going to smoke it or vaporize it in the state of Utah, okay?
Right.
Whatever that is. And they take that and they have terpenes, and they're really excited about all the different molecules. Because if you smell this one has a little bit of a citrusy smell.
Yeah, yeah.
Fatso, which is in the next room, which is another species, has kind of a greasy smell to it, right?
Yeah, a little more skunky
little
smell
skunk,
to it.
right. Little stink. We put a little stink on that one, right? And all that is different terpene counts or different amounts of different types of terpenes. Well, I don't know if this will blow your mind or not, but terpenes can act as solvents for cannabinoids. Molecularly, they can interact in such a way that you can actually have a better solvent effect from a cannabinoid if it's paired with the right terpene.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, that's really cool when you think about it, because that means if you talk whole plant medicine, really you do need the terpenes. You really need those things in that form to get the best medical benefit from lighting a joint.
We've talked a little bit about cannabinoids, but you're mentioning terpenes. What's the difference?
Cannabinoids actually they're able to be absorbed by the endocannabinoid receptor system. Terpenes by themselves have effects on our system, but it's not a dose-to-dose ratio. It would be like comparing like a lavender or something along those lines. Everyone says myrcene, for example, which has an earthy smell and an earthy quality. Oh, well, that's good for digestion or will help with your inflammation. Okay. There is no scientific study that shows myrcene has this dose effect for lowering inflammation or helping digestion. But if you think myrcene in the presence of CBG, and myrcene actually acts as a good solvent for CBG, which does lower inflammation, all of a sudden you have this winning combination between the two. A terpene, chemically, I would call a flavonoid. It's something that has a flavor and an essence to it, but isn't a smell to it, but isn't something that we would consider to have a dose response to.
Like a cannabinoid.
Like a cannabinoid.
Okay, so all of these things, this seems like, and we talk about this with our patients a lot, this is really why cannabis is such a unique plant-based medicine that's really has to be individualized for the patient, for what they want the outcome to be, like we talked about in the last video, and then what ratios of things like CBD to THC or CBG to THC that you really want. It's partly why I describe to patients the need to experiment a little bit with small amounts and low doses of different products to find out what works for them. When I'm doing that with a patient, is that because their system is a little different? A little bit in the first video, we talked about tolerances and why,
Sure.
Somebody might take 10 milligrams of THC and another person needs 50 milligrams. Is this is this the same type of concept that it's so individual? My endocannabinoid system is a little different than yours, or do they all start in the same place?
Generally speaking, they all start from the same place. This is the difference between whole plant medicine versus kind of Western medicine ideas,
I got
right? So we can take willow bark, grind it, extract it, and make aspirin,
aspirin.
right? And
Dandelion root, you can make a diuretic.
That's absolutely right.
Right?
So, but in order to do that with the dandelion root, how far up the plant do you get? You make sure you get any of the trim with it. You get the nodules at the ends of the root. And that
This
sounds
is why
overly
I like
complex.
to involve you in these conversations, because I learned so much about like the things that I know, and anecdotally we talk about this with patients all the time. But it's nice to get down to the nitty gritty of how these things work and where they're produced on the plant and why that makes a difference in my system.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that I think is really interesting when we think about whole plant medicine is it will be different. It'll be different lots, different strains, different terpene profiles will have a different effect on the individual. So what's the correct answer? Should we only follow that method, or should we start looking for dose responses? In my opinion, we do both.